As they scale, the cash position that they have in reserve is going to have to scale as well for the very reasons you just laid out. But again, if you're thinking about a global rollout, they will need to have a very, very large cash position. They do that? Absolutely. And I think that they're probably going to do it. But again, I'm just calling out the tail risk here. Am I saying that it is a risk in the sense of that it's probable? No. I'm just saying the possibility is I have to consider it. And that's just something I like to call out. But they are reducing it significantly by being as conservative as they are and having the cash reserve. But I would assume and expect to see that as the dividend obligation and the adoption of these preferred offerings grows, so does their cash position. If the cash position were to stay where it is right now and the coverage and obligation were to scale proportionally, then I'll be, somewhat surprised. I wouldn't be concerned, but I would still be surprised that they haven't grown the cash position in proportion. But I think that they're going to scale it out. I do. I think they're going to scale it out. They're going to scale out the cash reserve, and they're going to scale out the offerings. However, I can't just be blindly bullish. And I do have to say that there is a crisis of scale that is theoretically possible, and it's just something that I like to call out.
I like that because I think the worst thing that someone could do, just like researching something, getting bullish on it, and closing their eyes towards risks. That is the worst thing you can possibly do, because you might be right at one point, but things can change within like 1 year, 2 years, even things can change over months. So I think that's also something very important to call out, that strategy is something very different to Bitcoin. Bitcoin, you might not have to do as much research on the ongoing basis. Like once you research Bitcoin and understood it, you don't have to keep on researching it all the time just to reiterate what Bitcoin is doing, because there's no management team, there's no crisis of scale. You might benefit from actually looking into it and still seeing, are we in the right direction? But with a company, there's a lot more things that can go wrong. I mean, with strategy, there's all the things that can go wrong with Bitcoin, plus a management team, the stock market, on all the things on top of Bitcoin, I guess.
There is like, and without making anything that can seem like a political statement, we've seen how a single social media post from the United States president sends the markets into a tailspin or into a frenzy. Right now, I anticipate that that is something that is going to become more and more prevalent as time goes on, just because of the nature of markets and just because of how sentiment, I believe, moves markets, and algorithms are going to become more prevalent, and AI is going to make trading even more high frequency, in the sense of you're going to see shifts in the market that are far more volatile and violent because of the sentiment driven reactions of algorithms, right? So with that said, just project that forward. 5 years ago, I would have never thought that a president can make a post that's going to cause the market to tank or going to cause the market to rip. I wouldn't have thought that was possible, but here we are, right? So that alone is an unknown that we can't really project into the future. That can create a lot of shifting ground in the market, which is why I'm very, very reluctant to say that there's no version of the future where strategy is not going to run into trouble. I have to be responsible and say, am I bullish? Yes. Am I a long-term believer and holder? Yes. Have I really done the homework to say there's absolutely nothing that can go wrong? That's the other question that I need to ask myself, and that's the other question I need to answer. And that's why I bring up all of these considerations. It is unrealistic and it is unwise to just assume that strategy is a foregone conclusion in terms of success. And I think that they don't assume that they're a foregone conclusion just by how conservative and how very, very methodical they've been with how they've been doing things. Therefore, I shouldn't either.
If you live in Europe like I do and want to buy Bitcoin the right way, check out Relay. Relay is a Bitcoin only platform with no distractions, no shitcoins, just a BTC. It's also the easiest way I've found to do what actually works, buying Bitcoin on a consistent basis. Relay is also self-custodial. They never have the keys to your Bitcoin. No freezing of your assets, no counterparty risk, no rug pulling whatsoever. I have been a long-term fan of Relay, not only because it's incredible, easy to use and very beginner friendly, but also because it just works. If you want to get started with Relay today, click the link down in the pinned comment or in the description. And once you have downloaded the app, type in Robin in the referral code section of the app to save 10% on fees. So set up your DCA Bitcoin plan today with the Relay app and get cheaper Bitcoin if you use code Robin. With MicroSeed, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one washer. All 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get a new wallet. You can make unlimited backups because MicroSeed is not selling the washer. MicroSeed is selling the device that stamps the washer. So you get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today. And you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microseed.io. Finally, we have BTC Prague back in 2026. And this year, I'm not only speaking on a panel, but I'm actually going to present an interesting new angle, a perspective, a Bitcoin thesis at BTC Prague this year for the first time ever. I've never done that on any other conference, so this will be a fun one. If you listen to this show on a regular basis, I would love to meet you in Prague this year. It's very high signal, no noise, and Prague is just a freaking amazing city with awesome drinks and a lot of good food. Use code Robin to get 10% off, and if you buy with Bitcoin, you get an additional 5% off your ticket price. I'll see you there in Prague. Make sure to come say hi. Now, I think let's talk about Stretch a little bit more like on the bullish side, because I've heard that term a lot. And when I looked into Stretch, I kind of agreed, because for me, it's a big deal having Stretch into MSTR. The other products were already amazing and were doing good, but the volume and the awareness and the attention that Stretch is getting is on a whole different scale than all the other preferreds and all the other things that they have been doing so far. Is it fair to say that Stretch is the iPhone moment of strategy for Bitcoin treasury companies?
Is it possible? So the iPhone moment is, it's something I've repeated myself, but I don't like using it, just because I think it has other implications that are perhaps a little bit premature or heavy-handed. But with regards to Stretch itself, yes, I think it is. I think they have a winner. I think that they have the offering that I don't want to say that they were waiting for. I think they have the offering that they were gunning for. The reason why they had the different offerings between, first with Strike, that was Strife, that was Stride, and now it's Stretch. They have the different offerings. They're trying to target different capital allocators in the market, and they're trying to find their niche, right? I think the success of Stretch has shown a few things, and this is just my read on it. One, that there was obviously demand in the market before a monthly dividend paying offering where people can park their cash with reduced volatility, with reduced risk to the overall capital, and earn a dividend on it, right? So that's clear. The second thing that has showed that there was a demand for is Bitcoin being financialized in different ways. They had the initial offerings for all the other preferreds that brought them billions of dollars, and then Stretch brought them billions of dollars. But like you called out, Where this is different is the demand for stretch has been steadily ticking up. So they got the first initial boost from it in terms of the initial money that they got for buying Bitcoin. But what we've seen is that Stretch has been stabilizing. Stretch has been recovering after the ex-dividend date. Stretch has been showing itself to be resilient, even though Bitcoin's in a bit of a downturn. All of that tells me that the market had desire for an offering like this, and they just had to find the right wrapper, and that's what they have right now. And I think that Stretch, as the year goes on and as we see the Bitcoin price action, if it goes, sideways, if it's a year of chop and they're still able to acquire Bitcoin, I think whether they are able to acquire 100 or 1,000 Bitcoin doesn't matter. What they have shown is that they have another offering that's adjacent to the primary equity, just like the other offerings, that regardless of market conditions, they're still able to acquire Bitcoin. And one of the things that I've been, perhaps the critical is the wrong word, but let's use the word critical, is that strategy has been what I like to call price agnostic, but this makes them market agnostic. And what I mean by that is they've been price agnostic because their assumption is the same assumption that we have. Bitcoin is going to go up over time, so you should be relatively price insensitive. You should just buy Bitcoin when you have the money. Okay, fine. My criticism has been that a company shouldn't just smash by all the time. You have to think of different things if you are an operating company. Set that aside. Now you have Stretch. They're able to have a offering and have a source of future capital that doesn't put as much direct pressure on the common stock in terms of buying Bitcoin. And what I mean by pressure is I'm not saying that the ATM was driving price. What I mean is if the market conditions are not cooperating, they cannot buy Bitcoin, right? However, if Stretch is able to operate and allow them to buy Bitcoin regardless of market conditions, like it's been showing that it has been able to right now, that fundamentally changes the overall trajectory. And regardless of market conditions, they don't always have to rely on the common stock being positive or having the trading volume to justify buys. They now have the preferred equities, specifically Stretch, that allows them to buy Bitcoin regardless of what's happening with the common stock. And I think that's a very, very powerful tool.
I'm so impressed because if you look back in 2022, they had the year where I, I don't remember the exact numbers, but I think 2020 and 2021 they had about 1,000 Bitcoin accumulated per week, and I think 2022 was around like 100, 150, something like that, because back then they relied on the market. I think that's kind of what you're also saying. Now we have bad sentiment in Bitcoin. We are down 40, 45, 50%, whatever the exact number is in the Bitcoin price. And they are still able to not raise the same amount of Bitcoin as in 2021, like 1,000 Bitcoin a week. They're able, on average, I think in 2026, like 5,000, I don't know the exact number, but massively more Bitcoin, about I think 7,000 Bitcoin per week in 2026. So this is like, oh, they found a way to buy Bitcoin if the when the market also is low and kind of down. That is a huge step because this allows them to also benefit from the lower Bitcoin price and not buy his popular saying, "I will buy the top forever," is amazing. Like from like a just like a talking point, but actually from Bitcoin price accumulation, you want to buy the top and especially the bottom forever. Like buying the dip is a very powerful thing because then you kind of really rise up faster than that. So that's been really fascinating to see this bear market, how resilient they are to the market and still an accumulation machine.
Yeah, and that's why I say price agnostic and versus market agnostic. Another way you can think of it is price insensitive versus market insensitive. Whichever way you want to phrase it, the reality of it is the same. Price before, they were very, very insensitive and agnostic to the price, but of course that's market dependent. Now the market is not cooperating and they're still accumulating Bitcoin, even when Bitcoin is down, even when sentiment is down. Stretch allows them to do that. That is very, very powerful. And I think if they are able to ride this out, this market downturn out, they'll be handsomely rewarded on the other side of this thing.
But you said in the beginning that you think they have to keep on doing something. They cannot just like sit on the thing, that the stretch, and they kind of have to keep on doing something. So maybe just for me to think about how you think about it, it's if we just for the sake of the argument say stretch is the iPhone moment, they kind of have to build the app store, the airports, like all the ecosystem around the iPhone. They have to build the distribution channels. They have to go to T-Mobile and all of that to get the iPhone in everyone's hands. So this is kind of how you think about it, where like, okay, they found a winner, but they still have a long ways to go to make it a true iPhone moment, to build everything out in the long run. Is that like a fair assumption?
Yeah, so let's go with that analogy of thinking of the building out towards the iPhone moment kind of framing, right? Right now they have 5 offerings. They have Strike, they have Strife, they have Stride, they have Stretch, and they have Stream. Okay, in the European market. If Stretch is the iPhone moment using your framing, so let's think through what that means. They would have to build the different apps. I did a post, I think a few days back, where I said, would it be possible for them to do a Stretch, up Series A and a Stretch Series B? And what I mean by that is they have Stretch with the current ex-dividend date, and they do another version of Stretch with a different ex-dividend date, perhaps with different terms and a different interest rate, that will allow people to get a bi-weekly paycheck of a dividend directly from strategy, right? I think that's one way they can adopt and expand Stretch. Does that mean another offering on top of everything else, or does that mean reappropriating one of the existing offerings for that purpose? I don't know. I don't know what that would look like, but I don't think that there's anything that prevents them from doing that. So I can see a consolidation of the other offerings into a consolidation or a repackaging of other offerings into different structures to go along with this iPhone moment. If the monthly is the hot spot, are they better served in theory by 2 monthly offerings or 1 monthly offering and 3 quarterly offerings? Are they like where does that calculus go? I think that's another way that they can innovate. And when I say that they have to do things to differentiate and to innovate, I don't mean they need to keep coming out with things on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis. What I mean is as stress stabilizes, so let's say over the next 1 to 3 years, I don't think that I think the market's going to adjust to that. I think that the market is going to treat that as a new reality, and then the market's always going to be looking for what's next. That's the nature of markets. They are sentiment driven, they are narrative driven, and they're always going to be looking for what's next. And I think that the biggest challenge that's going on in the Bitcoin Treasury company space right now is that the market's been looking for what's next. Stretch, the preferred offerings, that benefit has not been directly reflected into the price of the common stock in terms of price appreciation. It has been reflected in terms of options market volume and trading volume. That has been present. But I think it's going to take some time for price appreciation to become the beneficiary of that. Now, once that happens, I think then they'll have to innovate again. I think they'll have to go forward again, whether that's through expansion, whether that's through new offerings and whatnot. I just I'm very, very reluctant to say that they have found the magic bullet and this is all they need to do.
Yeah, I guess it's almost like someone born with talent still has to do a lot of hard work to actually build on that talent and be the great, I don't know, singer, like a soccer player, whatever. Like just having that silver bullet doesn't mean like you have everything you need. You need to keep building and like hammering down on that. Like really interesting how you look at that. One thing I just remembered that I think I saw it a couple of weeks ago on Twitter, that Strive, and this is kind of what confused me, that Strive was buying Stretch. And Strive, just for the people that might not know, has a similar product than Stretch with SADA. I think it has a little bit of a higher yield, but it's like a similar product, similar market. Um, uh, and they are going ahead and like kind of buying the competition product, that really confused me. The first thing that every Bitcoiner does, and the most important activity that every Bitcoiner keeps on doing, is buying Bitcoin. And I personally use Relay to buy and sometimes also spend or sell my Bitcoin. And there are two main reasons why I do so. The first one is it's Bitcoin only. They do not do any shit coins. They do not do any cryptos, any stocks, or anything else. This is a tool, an app that is fully focused only and solely on Bitcoin. The second one is self-custody. They give you the keys to your Bitcoin the moment you buy them. You never give them the control over your Bitcoin, and you don't have to trust them because you can verify that you and only you have the keys to your Bitcoin. There's no third-party risk. There's no freezing of your assets. There's no rug pulling. There's nothing of that. Download Relay, the app, on your phone, or go to relay.app on your browser and use code Robin to save fees and get cheaper Bitcoin. I want to tell you about something very special to me. It's called MicroStrategy. If you hold your Bitcoin in self-custody, and you should, you know how critical it is to secure your seed phrase. You should not have them on paper. You should not have them on anything else than titanium. With MicroStrategy, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one washer. All 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get a new wallet. You can make unlimited backups because MicroStrategy is not selling the washer. MicroStrategy is selling the device that stamps the washer. You get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today, and you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microstrategy.io.